I can't sing with it. The only solution to the problem of me not being able to sing, you guys can be seated, singing in sync with the song is that I have to use an external source. You don't care about this. You don't care about this. If you're not sure what you're watching, even though it says so on the sign, even though it is being obstructed, we're about to find out through song, so let's listen carefully. It's the Bob Doyle Show. And let's address the elephant in the room, ladies and gentlemen. If you followed my instructions over at Facebook, you're going to find that I asked you to go over and do some chatting on this page as part of the show. And you'll see that many of you did that, which is great, like Valerie and Natty and Terry and Carrie. Carrie is the point of this particular conversation right now. He is the elephant, if you will, because I said, you guys rock, even though none of you are guys, because I thought Carrie was a woman's name. So right away, it was a judgment, which that I didn't, was not intentional. Point is, there's no icon. You know how, look, see how there's little faces with everybody? Except Carrie. How was I supposed to know? The only other Carrie I've ever known was, guess what? A female. With that spelling. So I just made the assumption, and we all know what happens when one assumes. So we don't need to discuss it any further, and I'll thank you not to do it during the show. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, we need you to subscribe. I'm sorry, we don't need you to. That sounds desperate. We don't need, you know what? Whatever. Subscribe, don't subscribe. I don't need it, but I'd like it. So, again, this is what it looks like. Subscribe, it'll say subscribe. You click the little bell, and then that way you'll be notified every time this magic happens. And it is magic. Now, what is this show? Oh, here we go again. Okay, look, sometimes there's new people. Like Terry, who joined us last night on the show that we did on Facebook Live. And she made a commitment, I guess, to be here today. And guess what? She's here. So, there you go. The show is about commitment and other things. What else? What other things, Bob? You've piqued my interest. That's my impression of you. And you have a very good voice, and you're quite articulate. So congratulations. We like to make the world a little bit happier, starting with you. That's right. Happiness, of course, is an inside job. Do I have the right music for that? Let's find out. Happiness is an inside job. It is, no, that's not going to work. Plus, I was probably out of sync because it's the same problem as the other one. So that was just rhythmically and musically a catastrophe. Speaking of music, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our weekly harmonica lesson, so grab your harmonica. You remember last time we discussed blowing through the harmonica. It sounded something like this. And I promised you that next time we would take it to the next level, which is an inhale. Now we put them together and we get this. Hey, you're a country western star. Speaking of the harmonica and happiness hacks, who said anything about happiness hacks? Well, I was about to. Okay. Happiness hacks are these little things you can do in your day to make them just a little bit better. And that's really all we need, right? We're living at this low burn of stress and anxiety and worry and It's those little things that just take a little bit of the energetic weight off. Guys, don't underestimate that. Are you underestimating it? I hope you're not, because I asked you not to. If you asked me not to underestimate something, I would consider not underestimating it. So could you give me the same courtesy? So while we've got our harmonica, here's a way, as you get through your day, you ever sigh sometimes, because out of frustration? That aforementioned stress, that little, and you're just sitting around minding your own business, suddenly out of nowhere you find yourself going, right? And that's like communicating to the universe, I don't like things the way they are, and I'm exasperated. This is my impression of you when you're worried. You want to turn that you want to turn that frown upside down? Well, here's what you do. Next time you feel one of those sighs coming on, oh, things aren't going the way I want to. I was trying this and I got that. I expected them to do this and they did this other thing. And when you're about to exhale, you go, you do that a few times. And I promise you, your mind's going to go, it's going to be a reframe. Just try it. It may not, look, some of these things seem theoretical until you actually try them on. I'm waiting for you to do it and then report back. Let's go to your comments. I'm assuming that all of you have done it right now, so I'm looking for comments about how it worked for you. Lisbeth said, this show is happiness for me today, so she obviously did the harmonica thing. Leanne said, ha ha, so she obviously did the harmonica thing. Terry said, it is indeed magic, so clearly she did the harmonica thing. There's just so much harmonica-ing going on right now. I barely know, I don't know if we can move on from it. I think we're stuck. I know we were going to talk about judgment and talk to Rikka and stuff, but I think right now it's harmonica all the time. All harmonicas all the time. That doesn't work for me. I know you guys are all for it and all of that, but... So happiness hacks, right? These other little things that you can do in the course of your day. So if you're, now this one, I'm just giving you another example. Okay? If you have a pet, if you currently have a pet, here's what you can do to make your day a little bit better. Now this may seem out there for some of you who aren't in the know, but that's why I'm here. Allow your pet to sing to you. Bob, what are you talking about? First of all, wow, you really came in hot on that one. You didn't take 1 second to consider what I was even saying. You were just like, singing animals, get out of here. When do we talk to Rikka? In a few minutes. If we do this, look, this is kind of the price of admission. You gotta sit through this. Oh, I wish I didn't have to. All right, well then tune in at 10 after the hour from now on, but you never know what you might miss. You gonna be at the water cooler? Did you catch the first 10 minutes of Bob Doyle Show? No, I skipped it. Gah! And there's no way to watch it again. Yes, there is. Not right now, obviously. But when this is over, if you're watching this on the replay, you might have skipped ahead. In which case you're not hearing this. So, again, I'm just wasting my words. All right, so allow your pet to sing to you. You have to, it's kind of like you know how with vampires, you have to invite them into your home? Right? You all know what I'm talking about. Well, it's the same thing with allowing your pets to sing to you. They want to sing to you. It's like all they think about all day. They're like sitting around going, oh, ask me, ask me, ask me, ask me, ask me, and no one does. I did. I've got my dog Winston here, and I have invited him to come onto the show and sing. Winston, go for it. Your rhythm seems a little bit off. Maybe it's not. I'm not treating you with the proper respect. Let's hear. Tell you what. Now it's like you're a real guest. Hold on. I gotta. There, ladies and gentlemen, we're here with Winston, the singing dog. It's a phenomenon, and we've allowed him to sing. Winston, go for it. Now, if your day isn't a little bit better right now, then guess what? You're like a zombie coma. You're a zombie coma. Now, look, if any of you are zombies in a coma, please, I didn't mean to offend. We're just having fun here, right? It's just, it's just a common phrase, zombie coma. Everybody uses it. It's almost meaningless in today's society. But I know that some people are sensitive to the whole zombie thing, so whatevs. Carrie says, just ask the cat to sing. He swiped me. Sharp claws. Whoops. Oh, you can't read that comment because it's scrolled off. It's not just asking. You have to energetically allow it, Carrie. I probably didn't make that part clear. So you have to visualize. You know what? I left out a very important part. To allow the animal to sing to you, first you have to visualize it singing to you so you can get the experience. Because if you don't, you're going to freak out when they do it the first time. So you have to kind of run it as a rehearsal in your head, until you get comfortable with it. Then, and only then, will you be in the energetic space to receive the gift of animal singing. The stuff you learn on this show, am I right? It's not just judgment. Animal singing. And harmonica lessons. And that's all within the first 10 minutes. All right. It is up to the point now where you're expecting me to now talk to Rikka. It is the promise of the show, so let's do it. So as I always say, this show, just as a reminder, a friendly reminder for those of you who may have gone like this during the beginning when I really wasn't talking about much of anything. This is what we do. I explained all that. But this show is about creating a happier place in this world. You, starting with you, these little things, the happiness hacks that you can bring into your life, little changes that you can make to make your life happy, right? That's what this show is about. And as a coach also in the personal development space, law of attraction, I see lots of things that affect a person's ability to allow themselves happiness. And one of the major ones is self-judgment, self-critical thinking, and just beating up on yourself, I'm not enough, and all of these things. From a law of attraction point of view, that wreaks havoc on your vibration, ladies and gentlemen. Because you cannot send a consistent signal of I deserve and I have and all of this if you are judging yourself as unworthy or not good enough or any of those things. So that's what we're going to be talking about with our special guest today, who you already know who she is because, her picture was up front. This is not really a surprise. It's not like I'm going, and now, ladies and gentlemen, the moment you've all been waiting for. No, I'm just going to introduce her now. And here she is, Rikka Zimmerman. Hi, Rikka.
Hi, Bob. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here and to, begin unlocking that self-judgment that keeps people in a place of repeating those old patterns and, not allowing themselves the happiness and the freedom and the fulfillment that they really could be having in life. So I'm really excited to be here, and today's going to be amazing.
That's right. In a few minutes from now, we're going to talk about that. But first, I have to let these people know a little bit about you and how I know you and just, bring people up to Rikka speed. So I met this woman, 5-6 years ago or something. And we were at a mastermind. I don't know if you remember the exact details, but you were sitting at a table with a mutual friend, and everyone's a buzz about this Rikka, right? And that she's just up to this cool stuff. And then, you meet her. Well, I did. And everyone I saw did. And you just immediately go, oh. Right? You get that all the time, don't you, Rikka?
Oh.
You do. You do. She won't say it.
Well, I was doing the same thing about you, Bob, so.
See what I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen? See what she's doing there? See, that's what I'm talking about. She's a charmer. But I'm telling you that in the short conversations we had that day, I just knew that this woman is something super special, and she's up to some stuff I don't understand. You know how dogs, when you look at them and you say stuff to them, and they go like this? That was kind of my first impression of Rikka, because she was speaking this language that was, even though I'm in the personal development space, was very different, and yet her authenticity and her genuine care, because we had just met, and I was going through a tumultuous time, if you remember, Rikka.
I do.
Yes.
I do.
And she was just so grounded in her dealing with me, and it was just so special, and I'll just never forget it. Obviously, I can almost, so many freeze frames from that original moment. So, but I would love for people to understand a little bit, like before I even met you, what led you to that point? Because I could go on, and probably will, about just how unique and just what a different vibe you have than so many other people in this industry and just that you meet in life. But I don't know that I've ever sat down and talked to you about, so how did this happen? How did you get here? So I figure, let's do it now.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for that.
Sure.
That introduction. And I feel like as a coach, as a facilitator, as a teacher, I've been learning by experience. Some teachers are like, yeah, I just sat on a park bench and I just woke up and now I'm present and everything's love. That was not the case for me. I came from a very normal family, who and came out of that experience with my parents feeling, of course, all these judgments, like I wasn't good enough and I wasn't smart enough and I wasn't pretty enough, and just all the things that they felt about themselves, as we all do. We come out of our childhood with all that programming, and found myself later on in life not being able to really show up like you, Bob. I play music and write music, and I was so scared of sharing myself that I just wouldn't do it. Or like maybe I'd make myself, but when I got on stage, I would do these self-deprecating like excuses like, hey guys, I'm just doing this as a hobby, so please don't judge me because, I'm not very good, but like, hope you enjoy it. Okay. And you know what I mean? Like,
Wow.
terrible.
I can't even imagine that. I cannot even pick as a bit you making fun of yourself, maybe I guess, because that's so not who you are now. That is amazing.
Yeah,
Okay, please continue.
absolutely. So, I was stopping myself around every corner. And at some point I was like, I'm kind of feeling like I'm actually broken. Like my father passed away when I was 11, and he was sort of like, we were very close. He was my protector and, my safety net and all this stuff. And when he passed, I think I lost trust in life. Right. So I had this kind of feeling like the worst thing is going to happen to me. And so I've got to control everything. And, I've got to judge everything. I've got to figure everything out, kind of living in this state of not being relaxed. And then that led me to, all kinds of crazy things as limiting beliefs and judgments do. I found myself almost declaring bankruptcy, not able to pay my mortgage. I had men in my life that were like, oh, I want to marry you and I love you. And I was like, whoa, I'm not attracted to you, and I'm like, okay, something's like big time wrong here. You know what I mean? Like I'm headed down a path that is not a good one. Through that journey of trying to discover how to heal and fix myself, I found personal development. I just got hooked. I was like, oh my God, you could change yourself. You could change the way you could feel. You can change your life. It's all about human consciousness. Like, yes, I can do this. And I've been hooked ever since. I've also, been through stage 4 cancer. Been given 8 weeks to live. So I've been through a lot of different things that have really brought me to my knees and humbled me and allowed me to really choose to stand for love instead of, judgment or beliefs or limitations. It's like, I'm just not interested.
Yeah.
Love is the only thing that means anything to me. So, living in your head or figuring things out or all that stuff, it's like, it's just not important anymore. So in that, I get to hold this big old level and space of love for everyone, to be able to step into that love for themselves.
And that's the thing, is that the space that you hold for the people who you're around. I think that's probably the best way I can say it. I mean, you have this way of just like, it's just, I guess that's accurate. Would you say you're holding the space, and your enthusiasm and the joy that you exude in what you're doing and this message of love is just so huge that it can't be not heard when you're talking. So I'm wondering, you said, a little bit about the story and all of this. Was there like a really big sort of aha? Because now you talk on a level, we're all energetic speakers. We talk about things. We could be called woo-woo, all of this, right? I mean, would you say that you fall into that category from time to time?
Yeah, I would say I'm the woo of the woo-woo.
Yeah, okay.
I probably fall under that category. If Woo-Woo had a child named Woo, I would be her. Okay,
so we're just owning it, right? But you and I both know that Woo-Woo is science too. It's just kind of been categorized as this because, whoa, we don't get it or whatever. And you very firmly speak in that language. Now, was that something that was always there within you, or was that sort of like you just kind of got, like for me, it became a series of downloads when I sort of opened myself up to it. Just sort of an understanding that you can't really explain. I don't know where I was just then. I left the country, got a dialect, said a word, came back.
I love you, Bob.
No, it's happening now. I'm channeling this.
That's great.
But I mean, so I'm just wondering, how did that kind of information start coming through you?
Yeah. Well, finding my own path as I was finding my way out of judgment and into, real life and into love. And, I got really excited about my own life. And then anytime anybody asked me for any advice, I was like, yes, this is the best thing ever. Oh my God, I get to ask you questions and we can unlock energies and we can surf universe. Like I was in, right? So I found that facilitating people was the best thing that ever happened to me. I just loved it so much. Like I love feeling love and people's greatest life and their greatest vision of themselves, and their life actually coming to fruition. Like it lights me up like nothing else. I just love it. So in training other people, I learned so much about human consciousness, and I applied it to my life and would work on myself and them. And so it's really been a collaboration of 14 years of experience and facilitating over 150,000 people all over the world. That's really taught me, this. And when you were saying like I feel this energy around you, when I interact with people, I like feel your greatest self. I feel this life and this being and this joy and this love and this depth and this, like I feel God in you or source in you, right? So I'm hanging out with source in you and you're like, woo, this feels good, right? And all of that stuff that's not true and not real just begins dissolving in our presence together. So
now hold up. Let me just, now everybody this is a little out there, just stay with us here, because you have to admit, now this is the thing, is that we run into it, we have experiences as humans all the time where we'll be in the presence of someone and we just feel a certain thing. We feel uplifted, or the other way, the idea that we are in communication at an energetic level, you just can't deny it. Yeah, we don't talk about it, and yeah, it can sound woo-woo, but it's undefreakeniable, right? And so Rikka's just describing that state with a big smile on her face and so much enthusiasm. Well, so we started this conversation, or you mentioned being a musician, and really, and that's one area where a lot of judgment came down on you. And of course, we didn't say this yet, but that of course came around, and you've done a couple of CDs, yes?
Yes, yeah.
Right. And so that whole music thing, you've definitely owned that, and you're creating, really fun and amazing and engaging music now. And so I imagine that, this self-judgment in terms of music is a thing of the past for you, for the most part. Yeah.
And oh my gosh, you find out how judgments are not true and not real, absolutely at all. Like I used to think that I wasn't good enough to be a singer or songwriter, and I just had a song that was nominated for a Posy Award, which is like the Grammys of positive music. Like we charted number 19 on iTunes. It's like, you know what? These judgments that I used to believe are real and that you maybe are believing are real at all simply aren't. They just aren't. Like they just aren't, right? So that's, it's amazing to really look at here I was in this consciousness of holding myself back and thinking I wasn't good enough, and I was sabotaging record deals, and I was doing all kinds of amazing things to destroy my life.
Congratulations.
Right? Because that judgment that I wasn't good enough to receive it.
Right.
And as soon as I let that judgment go and just press the stop button, like, I'm not doing this. No matter what it takes, I'm not doing this. And started to step into loving myself, all that stuff then just got to show up and be easy. And it's like, oh my goodness, this whole world I thought was so real. Truth is, it's not real at all. All judgments are not real and not true.
Well, let's talk about judgment and kind of define it. I mean, I think people know, for the most part, how they judge themselves, and they think about that as self-judgment. But there's probably all kinds of ways that we're judging ourselves, aside from the, I'm not fit enough, or I'm not funny enough, or whatever it is, however we judge ourselves. So let's talk about what judgments are in this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So judgments basically are a lens that you're seeing and experiencing the world through, right? So the way I like to explain them is it's like putting on circus glasses, right? So instead of just experiencing life as life force energy, coming through, allowing yourself to be like you would be in nature, like where you're just in a state of flow and receiving. Judgments, you basically put them on like circus glasses, and you look around, and what you see is different than what is, and what you feel is different than what is also. They're basically a distorted lens that you are experiencing and seeing your life through, and they become a self-fulfilling prophecy because you think, oh, well, since I'm experiencing this, then it's real, right? Except that's not true. Like, if you have a negative judgment of anything, say even a smell, like, oh gosh, I hate the way, this smells. Every time you smell that, you're going to have a negative experience. If you actually let go of the judgment that it's negative, guess what? You will no longer have a negative experience. So there's no way to use your experiences like, oh, I had a negative experience here, therefore it's negative. No, it's the judgment that creates the experience.
Right.
So if you let go of the judgment, you wouldn't have the experience. So you can't really even create judgments from what you've experienced in the past, because all of that was created from the judgment. Let go of the judgment, you don't have the experience. And that goes with everything in life. I mean, it's nutty.
Yeah, so we talk about all the time how we're meaning-making machines, and that's basically what we're saying. And you can say making meaning and or judging. It's kind of the same thing. But in this case, it's like this sort of negative judging. And I think that like so many things we do as humans to kind of cope with life and figure things out and get through it, there's a reason that we're doing this. Like we're getting something out of that. What are the reasons that people will judge themselves like that?
Well, and that's a really good point, because if we didn't believe that it was benefiting us in some way, we wouldn't do it. Right?
Right.
It's like, so somewhere in your consciousness, you actually believe that by judging yourself or anyone else, there's actually going to be a benefit, right? So there are actually like 3 top myths that you believe judgment is actually serving you in some way, and it's not serving you at all.
And I'm going to jump in and just to get people's attention and say, now listen, because these are going to apply to you.
Yes.
So do not tune out now thinking, oh, 3 things, whatever. No, this is you. And you go, I will listen very closely to the rest of this conversation. Okay, please continue.
Yeah, you're so cute. Okay, so judgments themselves, like, why do we think that they're benefiting us? Like, one of the aspects is that you think it's going to make you a better person, right? So my parents actually taught me that, like, oh, you've got to judge yourself because you're bad and you got to make yourself better, right? So that's one myth. Judgment does not make you a better person. Like, how many people do you know that judge themselves and the world around them all the time and are actually a better person for it?
Hold on. Yeah.
Like,
great. Yeah.
It's kind of funny when you look at it, but how much judgment goes into trying to make yourself a better person. Well, I'm sure I said this wrong. I've got to say this better. You know what? That's judgment. That does not make you a better person. Well, I shouldn't have said this. I should have said this. I should have done this instead. Okay, none of that makes you a better person, right? So the second myth is that you think that it will help you not repeat the past or not make the same mistake again. So another benefit that we believe that judgment is helping us in some way is that we believe, well, if we judge this as wrong, then we're going to avoid it, right? If we judge this experience as bad, then we won't have the same experience. This is good, this is bad, I'm not going towards the bad thing. Okay, guess what? Whenever you judge anything, okay, you actually repeat the experience for a later date. Judgment repeats the pattern, okay? It doesn't allow you to let go of the past and no longer function from the past. It actually repeats the past.
So one of the things that one of the ways I see this showing up is people, let's say, because this was my world for so long, people trying to learn the law of attraction, right? Yeah. And they got all these rules they're trying to follow because 1 million people told them there was 1 million rules. Okay. So, and then when they break the rules or they don't do it, they obsess over that. I should know better than this. But their ego is saying, good, you're working on yourself, right? You're trying, you're not getting it, but you're trying. You just keep focusing on that problem, right? So it's kind of the same thing. You're getting something out of it, even though it serves you in no way.
Yeah, absolutely. And really, like, okay, so if you go, oh, I should have done this differently, you're actually putting energy into it existing. Okay, and that's the main part, right? So you're actually the creator of your life experience. Whatever you give attention and energy to, guess what? It exists. So if you go, I shouldn't have done this, you're basically saying you're giving more energy to you having done it. And guess what? It's going to repeat.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Or I did the wrong thing, or I said the wrong thing, or this person's wrong. Right? I remember when I got out of a heartbreak relationship, I found myself really wanting to judge the person, right? Like, but they lied and they cheated and they, all this stuff. And I'm like, whoa, 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 hold on. And the question that I would ask myself is, do I actually want to repeat this? Because if I give energy to this, I'm going to repeat it. And you know what? I don't want to repeat it. So let's not judge.
This is so good. This is so good because this is what does this, the repeating, because they think exactly. I just want to underline what you said so it doesn't get lost. That this whole judgment, thinking that they're working on them, thinking they're going to get it right, thinking it's going to avoid the mistake, it's doing the exact opposite. And now there's a million energetic reasons why that's true, but just know that it is and do something else, which we'll talk about.
Exactly. Okay, that's pretty darn awesome, you guys. Because the conversation that I have with myself in regards to anything like that, like I remember in another relationship, me and my partner got in a fight, right? And they were really upset at me. They thought I was flirting with somebody when it was really bringing up past stuff from their old marriage, right? Where the other person cheated, right? So I'm in the shower and my whole system's going, they're wrong, they're wrong. And I'm like, stop, stop, stop. And then the next sentence is, but you're right. You didn't do anything. You shouldn't have been blamed for that or yell, blah, blah, blah. They shouldn't be, and I'm like, whoa, stop, stop, stop. Because each one of those things, either I'm right and they're wrong, or I'm wrong and they're right. Guess what? You're just literally slating having the same experience at a later date.
Yes.
Seriously.
Yes.
It's so absolutely true. You're like, all right, divinity, I'm not going to stand in love right now and embrace all of this and just be that space of no judgment that allows it all to dissolve. Mm-hmm. No, I'm going to repeat this fight or this pattern at a later date. And in the meantime, this judgment is going to create separation between me and my partner. So then when we go to make love or kiss, we can no longer feel each other. It's huge.
Yeah.
Okay. Judgment is one of those things that creates separation between you and someone else. It also creates separation between you and you.
So what is the third thing? The third
thing. So you think it will help you change or alter your experience, right? So like I'm in that bathroom going, he's right. Or he's wrong and I'm right, and the judgment itself and my unconsciousness thinks if I can judge this the right way, then it will work out and this will change. But that's not true at all. It just gives more energy to the problem. Okay, so like with a partner, you could be like judging them for not mowing the lawn. Oh, they never help out. God, why won't they mow that freaking lawn? It's just like turning into a freaking jungle. Like, who did I marry, right? So you can think and judge something like that, and guess what you're doing? You're basically energetically putting into their field, don't mow the lawn. And they're like, I don't feel like it. I don't know why. And truly, it's your judgment. And everybody's psychic and nobody knows it. So you're putting that judgment into their head. They're falling into your world. Jerk won't mow the lawn again. It's like, oh, not mowing the lawn again, and I don't know why. So you think judgment is going to alter or change something when really it just installs the same reality that you're judging.
Mm-hmm. This is good stuff.
It's a big deal, you guys.
It just goes against it. It goes against that the nature of the ego, which just freaking wants to be right about everything, right? So it's like, people will forsake joy and happiness and freedom and lightness and all of it just to be right about that guy, right?
And check this out. What if every time you chose to be right about something, what you are then doing is asking to relive the past. Right? Because when you make something right, you're saying this is reality. And you're basically going to live out yesterday today. It becomes this Groundhog Day. So in that sense, do you want yesterday's life? Do you want to feel like you did last year, yesterday? Do you want to live the same thing over and over again? Would you rather be right and repeat the past and have your future be your past? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you want to stand in a space of love and go, never mind, I'm done with it?
Right.
Right.
So we've talked, and so it's insidious. It's insidious. It shows up in so many different ways, and we've talked about some of them, like, it's just going to cause you to repeat patterns. It causes separation. What are some of the other sort of the energetic ways that judgment is whacking our lives and our ability to be happy?
Oh, it just shows up in so many different ways. So whenever you judge anyone or anything, what you're actually doing is purposefully creating tunnel vision, right? To not actually be aware of anything else than what you're judging. So how many of you guys have ever, thought to yourself like, oh, this person won't hurt me. They're a really good person and they would never do anything like that. To only have that same person betray you and, a year later or whatever, you're like, oh my God, who is this person that I'm in this relationship with? Where did this guy or girl come from, right? So judgment itself literally cuts off your awareness. You can't be aware of anything that does not match your judgment.
That's pretty big, because it's taking the lens, which you have so many possibilities with how you want to see through that thing, and you just go, shoo, judgment. This is truth. You make it up. It's not everybody else's truth, by the way. It's just yours, right? And it comes along with all the energetic baggage that comes with that judgment. And you're taking it on willingly for whatever reason. Because people don't know that they have a choice. I mean, I think that's what really so much of like our work is like saying, hey, you know what? You don't have to do it that way just because you've been programmed so far to do it that way.
Yeah, judgment's not mandatory.
Which is, I mean, it just flies in the face of just logic of what we've been told. But just think about, try on a day without judgment, and what would that feel like? How much lighter would things be if you didn't have to judge something?
Oh my gosh. Interpretation and judgment is like the killer of joy. It instantly kills joy, right? Because you're in a contraction rather than in an expansion. You can't have judgment and joy at the same time. Joy is free. Judgment is enslavement. You're not going to, like, the best you can do in a world of judgment is being right. And have you guys noticed that it feels really wrong to want to be right?
Right, and that's that whole, and yet it's that insidious sweetness of it. It's that weird little poison that your body creates that says, I don't like this, but right?
Right, I'm right about it. I am so right about it. Okay, so when I used to want to be right because I realized that judgment, positive or negative, good or bad, was just a no-go for me, I was like, okay, this is toxic, right? So I made up a right dance. So whenever I wanted to be right, I was like, yes, I'm right, I'm right, I'm right, I'm right, I'm right, I'm right. And I had to put so much joy and happiness into it because the thing was so like twisted and weird and like good but bad. I was like, so I created this really funny dance so that I could laugh my head off instead of be right. I was like, okay, this is really silly, right? So I began kind of even doing that with my partners whenever they wanted to be right, because if you look at, I'm right, then somebody else is wrong, and it sucks. It ends up creating separation. It's a one-way street. You're either on my street or you're off my street. Somebody either agrees with your rightness or they disagree and they separate. Like, it's not very fun, right? So we had to create something fun around it. So we created a right dance, and then we would do this like right booty dance, and then finally you just go, oh, never mind, this is silly. I don't care about being right.
So can we make a suggestion for those in the audience who are going, oh, I'm not going to do a booty dance. How else, just hypothetical people, not anyone I would know. What else could a person do? It's basically a pattern interrupt, right? That we're really trying to just, when you get that familiar feeling, replace it with something else over and over so that you get the silliness of it. Just a couple of other examples besides maybe a booty dance.
Yes. Okay. So, what I did for actually a period of a year is I would picture a stop sign and then just choose something beautiful or fun or light. Like, even if it was like with my body, I used to have tons of judgments about my body, like, oh, you're not thin enough, your thighs are too fat, your tummy has cellulite, whatever. Like, it would just, you're getting wrinkles or whatever. I used to have tons of judgments about my body. And so I realized that judgment was made up. It's not true. It's a complete lie, right? It's just a lens. I don't have to do it. It's not mandatory, right? And so I'm like, screw it. I'm bucking the system. Judgment, you're not the boss of me. You don't get to tell me how I feel about myself. Screw you. And so what I would do is picture a stop sign, right? And then I would just choose anything that was wonderful. Like, oh, look at my toes are painted. Look at how cute they are. Or, wow, look at how beautiful of a day it was. And I would just pattern interrupt and pattern interrupt and pattern interrupt until I didn't have those neural pathways programmed in my brain.
Yeah.
So that's a super simple and easy tool. Picture a chop sign and then choose something amazing. Now, when it really felt like judgment was super heavy and going to take me over, like I had to judge myself. Everybody is not happy with you right now, and you must judge yourself. When that feeling came on, and I'm like, oh, I don't have a big enough tool for this. Like me saying a stop sign isn't working. It keeps coming in and coming in and coming in and coming in. There were a few other tools that I created around this. And one was, you know what? I'm not going to judge myself here. And I would do that about everything. And it's so amazing. I don't have to be perfect. I'm so grateful that I don't have to be perfect. I can be completely imperfect, and I'm good with it. I don't need to judge myself here. And those two really began loosening up that feeling of, oh, I really got to judge myself. Should I give you one more? Or do you want to talk about this first?
There is one other there's one other part of this whole,
yeah,
the energetics of it that I definitely want to get out there because I think it's huge.
Yeah.
And you say that, and it sounds simple, but again, it's so layered energetically. But you say that all judgment is self-judgment. Now,
Yeah.
we started this conversation with obvious self-judgment of like, I am this or I'm not that. That's obvious self-judgment. But this is saying that any judgment you make about even someone else or something else is self-judgment. That has major implications energetically, but talk to that.
Oh my God. And it's so good to realize that, because you can begin monitoring your own consciousness. You think it's a judgment about somebody else. Oh, look at how, like, they think they're all that. Or, wow, I would never be that flirty. Or like, God, they just have this energy. It's just, right? All of those are literally self-judgment. Okay. So you're in judgment of some time in your life, or other lifetimes where you've actually been and done the same thing. So judgment is separation, right? It's what creates the barriers of your box of who you believe yourself to be. Mm-hmm. So also when anybody comes into your field that's a bigger energy, like people judge me all the time, truthfully. And the most judgments that I receive are you're too joyful, you're not real, you're too sexual, you're too much. And I'm like, yeah. And what's happening is their self-judgment is coming up in the presence of my space. Right?
Exactly. You're a mirror to their own judgments. It's like everything. All the judgments are in a comparison with some sort of value system or something from yourself, which is why you're judging anything as even being different, right?
Yeah, and what's wild is people start off with, "Oh, she's so sexual, she's so joyful, she's so blah blah, she's so in love with herself, she's in love with
all these horrible, 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 horrible things."
I know, right? I know. To me, I'm like, "Hey, it's all a compliment."
Yeah, really. It's like that's the worst you got.
Exactly. Like, yeah, you're right.
I'd hate to. Let's hear a compliment, right?
But the thing is that I annoy people because they're annoyed with their own self-judgments.
Yeah.
Right? And those judgments are actually coming up in my presence to be released. So please judge me. Like, judge me as being everything under the sun. And guess what? I won't do anything with any of those judgments that you throw at me, because I know that they're actually your judgments of you. And I will continue holding that space until you realize that you don't need to judge you, and you can be free and you can choose love.
I'm sure very confronting for people at first, right?
Yes. Sometimes people come into my life and they're like, I hated you until I loved you.
Oh,
And it's really like they were cutting off their energy, right? Using judgment as that separation to cut off their sexualness, to cut off their playfulness, to cut off their joy, to cut off their self-love, right? So that information is coming up to actually, be released. And it feels like it's a projection even onto me or onto somebody in your life, when it's just your own stuff coming up to be released. When you don't actually judge you, you don't care how anybody else judges you.
Right, exactly. Well, let's talk about that, and then we'll get back to the tools and how people can get a hold of some of these tools. But you brought it up beautifully, because it was my next question, but about other people's judgment. You and people's judgment of you and how that impacts you.
Yeah, I mean, how many of you guys are scared about, receiving judgment from people?
They're out there. I hear them raising their hands right now. Timidly, because because they don't want to be judged. I don't want to be that guy who raises the hand, but I do want them to know that. Okay.
Exactly, right? I don't want to be judged for being scared of judgment even, right?
Right.
So, a lot, I used to live my life from that space too, where I was like, well, how are people judging me, and how do I get them to not judge me, and how do I get them to love me instead of judge me, and all this stuff. So the only way out of that, if you don't want to be affected by judgment ever again, is to never judge you. Okay? If you literally stop this pattern of judgment and put it into your, conscious laboratory of self and go, you know what, I'm actually going to stop doing this. I realize it has no value. It's not benefiting me at all. And I'm just going to stop. I'm going to reprogram my whole system to stop it. Anytime I'm doing it with myself or anyone, I'm just going to stop. And instead, I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to notice something beautiful, right? If you actually get to that space of no judgment within yourself, anyone can judge you anyway, and it literally will not affect you.
Yeah, I get it. It just makes sense. It makes sense. But
you're out of the vibrational resonance.
Yeah.
Right? So they're in a collective judgment, because you guys notice, like, everybody judges everything. They think judgment is life. And so that's that collective thought pattern, and that's that vibration. And so, as creators, if we believe we are judgment and we buy into that judgment, we tune our frequency into that, right? So with that stop sign and choosing something beautiful and choosing not to do it, you actually enter into a different frequency range where there isn't judgment. You'd have to contract yourself and lower your frequency back into the collective to even pick up on judgments.
But even for just to ground this just a skosh for the people who, when we're talking vibration and stuff, this is just we're in essence we're talking about shifting your focus. We're talking about the energetic level that will be impacted by you doing this. But by consciously having other thoughts, all this energetic stuff is going to happen. This is what's really happening at a quantum level. You may or may not be interested in that. I am. Rikka is. It's cool. But to implement this stuff does not mean that you have to understand all that invisible stuff. It actually just makes a lot of practical sense if you just look at it that way. So I invite you to listen to it through that way. So you've shared a few things like that, these kind of practical in the moment type of tips, but I know you have something that people can get a hold of to kind of help with this whole judgment thing. Can you explain what that is? We've been showing the URL this whole time, sneakily putting it into their minds. So yes, they'll go right there, but let's talk about what's there.
Oh, we actually have an ending judgment program, and it has a $97 value, but we're just giving it to you. So that you can click on that URL that you see down there and just receive it. It's an in-depth teaching about the different 8 subconscious beliefs that actually keep judgment looping in your life, how to break that consciousness so that anytime judgment comes up, you go, oh, that has no value. Oh, that has no value. oh, that's not important to me. Like, it doesn't, there's no part of you that's engaging in it as if it has any benefit, because you're very clear about what it actually does, and you're just very clear that you're not choosing it, right? And so in that, we kind of, we give you those 8 different things, and then we also, just give you tools on how to implement this into your life in a real practical, easy fashion. And, stepping into a space of no judgment and having taken that stand for me of no judgment, the level of possibilities that get to show up in your life, the level of love and connection that gets to be with you in friendships and partnerships, the level of joy and happiness, it's really exponential. Like, if you haven't practiced this, please give yourself the gift of practicing this and implementing it into your life, because it's one of those things that will change everything for you, like everything.
And I want to stress that you are saying practice this, because we are adults and we have been wired for freaking decades. And this is a radically different way of looking at your day. You will need to remind yourself, and using these tools, I'm sure, will make it easier. But the point is that, this isn't one of those things you just go, boom, okay, I'm rewired. Expect for your ego to scream a little bit. What are you doing? This isn't who you are. All of those things. And be willing to understand that there's also, through using these tools, there's actual biology going on. Your brain is literally being rewired. That's how the lens will change. So this is science, but it took years to form the pathways as they are, and it can take some time to form them in a different way. But when you can get a sense of what the benefit is, just, we're talking about happiness here. If you've listened to this conversation at all, you've got to have understood by now how much this letting go of judgment, or at least greatly reducing it in your life, can raise your happiness factor tremendously. How much suffering do we do in our day that's all based because we've made a decision? We're judging. It's all from judgment, right?
It is. And it is a killer of relationships. Like, it's amazing to work with relationships in judgment, because you realize what judgment does to the way that you feel about each other. Mm-hmm. Like, you first meet, you don't have any judgment, and you're like so grateful. Oh my God, this person's amazing. It's so wonderful. You feel the love around them. You're around them and you're just like, oh, everything they say, it's just beautiful. And then what happens, right? Over time, you allow your consciousness to create more and more judgments. Now you know who they are. Now you're expecting them to be this way, to be late to every event, or to not really show up for you, or, you just create piles and piles of stuff. And then you go to be with this person that you really want to be close to, and you can't feel them. You can't make it to them. You've got walls of this illusion of separation, of judgment in between the two of you. And it begins feeling like a jail cell for you and them. Because somebody keeps projecting, oh, you're the same person that you were yesterday. It's super violent to actually do to anyone. Like, once you step into a space of no judgment, you're going to realize just how mean judgment of anything, including you, is. And
yet so natural for people. And if this kind of thing isn't pointed out to them, like in this way, they would never know. Yeah. They would never know. But to understand and just to hear you talk, it's like, this is all very logical. This is no freaking big leap of faith. This is about becoming aware. Yeah, I'm probably doing this. I'm probably doing this all over the freaking place. And here's some help. Right? And that's what we do here. So Rikka, oh man, so great to talk to you again. It's been way too long, and it's all on me. I'm always moving around, and I'm always too busy. So that's on me. And thank you, but I really appreciate you swooping in here and doing this. And it's such a great topic. It is so deep. It's rich. It's so multi-layered. This is not this simple thing. This judgment thing is huge. So I hope everybody takes advantage of that. It was just so great to talk to you, and I'll do better, I promise.
Oh, Bob. Well, thank you so much for having me again. It's a pleasure and an honor. You are brilliant beyond measure, and I'm so grateful for who you are and really the massive change that you've actually created for this planet. You showing up as you have been, assisting millions, being on The Secret, being the amazing Bob that you are, with all your joy and fun and little kidness, and ukulele-ness, and it's so incredibly important. So I just want you to take a moment and go, yeah, okay, like, yeah, I'm amazing and it's great. And so for all of you guys out there, your choice to be yourself, your choice to choose love, your choice to end the judgment and really show up in your life, it's huge. It's really assisting everything and everyone. So thank you from my heart to yours, Bob, for being who you are. You're amazing. And I'm just really grateful.
You're very kind. The pleasure was all mine. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Bob. Bye, everyone.
Right. Rikka, now. I hope you're in your brain right now going, oh, I totally do that. Now, so what are you going to do about this? What are you going to do with this? I have a question for, let's see, you. You can't hide. You wanted to. I see you back there. Question for you. Over the past, let's say 55 minutes, just random number, how many judgments do you think you made? And how many of those judgments, a word that is apparently trickier to say than I thought, how many of those judgments made you feel anything less than spectacular? And how many times during the course of a day do you think you do that? Because here's the thing, if you have a bad feeling, like an emotional feeling, guess what? It's because what? Anyone? You're judging something. And that judgment, that assessment creates the bad feeling because you've got all these associations. And here's what I'm inviting you to do. Because a lot of times when you're in that moment of judgment, it's all about that thing, right? Something triggers you and you have you go maybe a couple of layers deep about why you're irritated, why you're judging, why whatever it is. And you justify it. That's part two of the question. Over the past 55 minutes, if you made a judgment and it didn't feel good, how did you justify it to yourself? How did you justify allowing yourself to feel a negative feeling based on a judgment? The other thing I'm inviting you to do is so that judgment is made in the moment, feels very automatic, and like I said, you go kind of a couple of layers deep. And what I'm inviting you to do is to try on going many layers deep. Because the thing that triggers you in this moment is hardly ever about the thing that happens right then. You only have a negative assessment because you're comparing this event with something else in your life or a whole series of events that make you feel all combined in a negative way. It triggers this, it triggers that. This is like that. This is like, it has nothing, very little to do with the thing that you're judging. And so when you can see that and learn to let go of, this isn't even, what I'm feeling right now isn't even about this thing. If you can get that in the moment, you can begin to release the judgment. But it is not easy. So if, go get Rikka's tools and get whatever help you need, because think about it. If you could just go back to all the negative feelings you have during the course of a day are the result of judgment. And if you can greatly reduce or eliminate judgment like that in your life, just imagine what that opens up for you in terms of just getting through the day. A thing that bothers you all the time, triggers you for no reason. What if it didn't? And how are you justifying hanging on to the judgment? Yeah, but they did this or they did that. And what is it costing you to hold on to that? What is it costing you to defend judgment that makes you feel anything less than amazing? To be right about this thing, to feel justified about it. How does it feel? Because again, like I said at the beginning, vibrationally, that whacks you terribly. What you're sending out, this is very law of attraction-y, but what you're sending out there is this really mixed, garbled mess. And that is what you're going to attract. This work of personal development and getting better and getting back to happiness, which is just a state that we've moved away from, getting back to it requires allowing yourself to let go of a bunch of habits that do not serve you. Habits like judgment that you've justified over the course of your lifetime for all kinds of reasons. And so if you get nothing out of this conversation with Rikka other than it's a choice you're making in the moment, and that you do not have to live in judgment of everything. then it's the beginning of a new way. Let's go to your comments real quick. Dan and Patty say, thank you, no problem. I don't know who Rolls is. Terry, one of my favorite questions, what if? It seems like we did at some point, a whole little segment in a show one time about what if. Anyway, I just felt like that. I just feel like this conversation about judgment is so far-reaching, and we don't think about it because it's automatic. We're always making meaning out of everything. Our entire lives are just a series of interpretations of our experience of energy. And when we make a judgment that feels bad to us in our soul, if you can understand that it doesn't have to be that way, that you do have a choice, and here are some tools, right, from Rikka that can help you at least begin that journey of eliminating a great deal of judgment in your day. Ladies and gentlemen, we've done it again, another Bob Doyle Show. And if you didn't do it already, remember to subscribe and click the bell and all that other stuff so that you don't miss any of these others. And feel free to catch up on this show. Like I said, there's just literally hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of it. Right? I can't think of a better way to spend your day. We'll see you next week, Wednesday morning, 8 a.m. Pacific, right here on this program, The Bob Doyle Show.
It's the Bob Doyle Show.